Good morning. Let me add my welcome to Mark's and Rob's and others. You know, after that good word from Mark, I pretty much got nothing. But they have given me a few minutes, so I guess I could either tell a few jokes or maybe just say what I was going to say anyway. So I'll choose the latter. We're glad you're here. Is my slide up there, Gary? There we go. This is a picture you have never seen before. Not in any catalog, not in any piece of our promotion literature. I know this because I took this picture a few years ago out back with my phone. This is the other side of the seminary. Now I use that as clearly, it's not the most scenic view of the seminary, but it is part of this place. And I use this as a metaphor for those aspects of the seminary experience that really cannot be articulated. They can't be put in a catalog or in a curriculum worksheet or anything like that. But they are still profoundly impactful on you and on your entire experience here. The other side of seminary, the between the lines part of seminary. If any of you own four-wheel drive vehicles, you will automatically get A's in any of my courses, but that's beside the point. If you've happened to go on any of these steep mountain four-wheel drive trails, you know that you cannot go straight up one of those trails. You have to kind of worm your way around the rocks. It's all about angles, right? It's all about finding the right grip on a rock so that you can work your way up that hill, but you never go in a straight line. And those angles are somewhat like the angles of engagement that we bring to seminary. I learned very little in my high school math courses, which is why I teach theology. One of the few things I remember from my high school math or science courses is a little geometric principle that I think they called it the angle of impact equals the angle of reflection. If you're a math nerd, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. Now, I have found great use for that principle when I play pool. The angle of impact equals the angle of reflection, right? Now, those angles are similar to the expectations that we bring to seminary. And that's part of the other side of seminary, the expectations and the assumptions that we bring to an experience like this. And those expectations are often hidden from us, which is why I call them the other side of seminary, and yet they profoundly affect how we engage in experience like this. What I want to suggest to you is really just an extension of some things Dr. Young was talking about. Because in my years here, I've been here 21 years, and I've seen lots and lots of students who will, at one point or another, struggle deeply in their time here for reasons that I've come to believe are really unnecessary, but they often have to do with unnamed or unidentified expectations and assumptions that they brought with them about seminary. So I just want to name a few of those. Some of these may be true, probably not all of them are true of anybody, but you might identify with one or two of them. If you do, this would be a good time to think about them. One of those expectations I've seen quite often is that seminary is like devotions on steroids. That my personal devotional, or what some would call a quiet time, my personal devotion and worship life is going to just be extrapolated here and put on jet fuel or steroids or something like that. And when that turns out not to be the case, that can be quite disruptive or distressful. What I want to suggest that while we do try hard, we work very diligently to create a context of devotion, of worship, of commitment to Christ in everything we do, seminary is more like a place where God is going to expand your capacity for intimacy. Now, if you think about the way I've worded that, those are two different things, and yet very, very important. I had a student, the reason I coined that phrase is because I had a student some years ago sit in my office in tears saying to me, "There's no intimacy with God here." And I began to puzzle over that. what that meant. And that's when I realized, we're here to expand your capacity for intimacy with God. That means that as part of your seminary experience, we want your soul to have the fiber and the elasticity and the capacity to know what intimacy with God is when things are not working well, when life is collapsing around people's feet. What does it mean to be intimate with God, to trust God, to know God when nothing in life makes sense at the moment? That takes an expanded capacity for intimacy. That's what we do want you to experience times of intense worship and delight in God here. And I think you will. But we want you to experience that expansion of your capacity. A second pretty common assumption or expectation about seminary is that this is a place where all of my current conclusions and all of my opinions are going to be confirmed, and my theological ammunition belt is going to be filled with theological silver bullets. Now, this, Dr. Young kind of alluded to this. To be sure, this is a place where we're going to ask you to sift through a lot of things within a framework of commitment to essential core Christian orthodoxy. We don't want to make any apology for that. We share a common commitment to what has upheld the church in its faith for centuries. And within that framework, there's a lot of wiggle room. And we're going to ask you to test some things, to question some things, to examine some things, some of which, at the end of the process, you may still hold on to, but maybe for even better, stronger reasons. Some things you realize, that might not hold quite the weight that I was resting on it. But all of that is good. If you've ever, if any of you are gearheads or love to work with wood, if you've ever rebuilt anything or maybe stripped and refinished a piece of furniture, anybody ever done something like that? Okay, you know that before you can add something beautiful, you got to take away something that's getting in the way. It's that stripping process that's never really any fun. The fun is putting the new finish on, right? But you got to strip away that stuff that gets in the way of the new finish. A third expectation, assumption I've often seen is that seminary is kind of like a ministry tech school that's supposed to give me the answer to everything I'm ever going to face in the ministry God calls me to. Well, the reality is you will come away with some answers. You will come away with some resources, some ways of encountering, some ways of engaging and dealing with very difficult situations. You will get some of that. You and I both know, however, that our world is changing so rapidly, even at a quantum pace, that the questions you're going to be facing in ministry 5 years from now, some of them nobody's even thought of yet. And so more than just giving you like kind of a tech school box of answers for how to deal with this, how to deal with that, we want to teach you how to think faithfully about the world and about the brokenness in the world, and think through the lens, or look through the lens of the gospel, so that you can face faithfully whatever challenges come your way, even if nobody's dreamed of those yet. I'll stop there, but just give you what I think are maybe a couple of practical tips. And again, these are extensions of what Dr. Young has already shared. Treat this as a place not merely of information acquisition or education in a clinical, conceptual sense. Treat this as a place, and this experience in seminary, as a time for formation. Formation at every level of your person. Because you have an opportunity for God to form you into the person you will bring with you into whatever ministry God gives you. And we all, your faculty included, continue to need lots of formation in lots of areas of our lives. Secondly, make it a point now to practice the kind of Christian life and the kind of faith that later on you'll be calling people to. Now, why do I say that? Well, partly because seminary is a lot of work, and it's, as my colleague David Bushart loves to say, it's challenging under the best of circumstances. And nobody does it under the best of circumstances. It's stressful. It's going to put demands on your time and your energies like few other things will. And with that being the case, every one of us in seminary face certain temptations to kind of fudge or cheat on certain aspects of our life that are core disciplines of faith. Don't cheat on those things. Okay? Be regularly engaged in worship. Be involved in your local community of faith, your church community. Okay? Don't treat seminary classes like a replacement for church. They're not. Be generous. Now, some of you are going to be really financially strapped getting through seminary. I get that. I have been there. Okay? With whatever means God gives you, practice the disciplines of generosity. In other words, do the things in faith that you're going to be calling people to later on. Don't cheat on those now. Live that life of faith. And finally, treat seminary as part of your worship to God. Again, not as a replacement for church, but engage every course, every book you read, every paper you write, even though some of them, I promise you, will be tedious. Treat every one of those as something that God has given you to prepare you to serve well and offer those up to the Lord. I think it's a good idea to pray personally, even though most of our classes begin with prayer. I think it's a good idea for each of us individually to just begin every class session, even if it's a course in something really mind-numbing. Even if it's statistics for counseling students, or something related to grammar, if you're in a foreign language course, a Greek or Hebrew course. Offer every one of those course sessions up to the Lord and ask the Lord, what do you have for me in this today, Lord? What do you want to do in me and through me? Even if there's not an immediate life-changing application, Lord, what do you have for me? What do you want to do in me through this session today? That will change seminary for you. That is among the expectations and the assumptions and commitments that can make the other side of seminary as good as the front side. We're glad you're here. Lord bless you.